Hello everyone and welcome to another movie review video. I watched The Goonies for the very first time recently. I put up a poll in my community tab with 4 different movies that are pretty popular that I have never seen before, and The Goonies won by having 63% of the votes, dominated that poll, so I watched it for the very first time, and let me tell you, a lot of people hyped this movie up, and I did like it, but I feel like I would have enjoyed it much more if I watched it earlier, maybe like when I was younger. Because don't get me wrong, there is a lot of fun to be had with the Goonies, you know, a bunch of friends going on an adventure, you know, they're yelling at each other, and while it can get a little annoying at times, it's all in good fun. And while I may not be the biggest fan of it, I still enjoyed it, and I can see why a lot of people do love it. It just really didn't do all that much for me. If you don't know what the Goonies is about, it is about a group of friends where a couple of them are about to lose their houses, the Goondocks they like to call it. They find a map that leads to famous pirate One-Eyed Willie's treasure, and they follow it and hope they can get all the riches to save their homes. And yeah, they go on a fun little adventure. There's a crime family involved. You have young Josh Brolin in there. Love him as Thanos. He's one of my favorite actors, mainly because of Thanos. Cool to see him in there. His younger brother Mikey is our main character for the most part, and his friends as well, Chunk, Mouth, and Data. Chunk's a larger kid, talks a lot, doesn't know when to shut the hell up, you know, got a bit on my nerves, but he's a kid, so I can't really get too mad, because, like, you know, I was a kid, I probably never shut up at the time, but, oh, Chunk, buddy, you gotta simmer down.
They're gonna kill us! Shut up!
Mouth is like the jokester of the group, kind of snarky, and always causing some trouble or whatnot. He has a funny bit earlier in the movie where he's like translating to Rosalita, and he's speaking Spanish to her, telling her like, hey, if you don't do a good job in this house, you're gonna be locked in this room with the cockroaches and stuff. It was pretty funny.
Clark, can you translate?
Si no hace buen trabajo. Será encerrada aquí con las cucarachas.
He's played by Corey Feldman, which he kind of seems to play very similar characters. I've seen him in The Lost Boys, Stand By Me. Similar characters, kind of, you know. But also he is in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, Tommy Jarvis. Really enjoyed his character in that. And then we have Data, who's played by Ke Huy Quan, and one of my favorite parts of the movie, absolute highlight. He is the only kid that doesn't get on my nerves. I love his quirky inventions. He not carried the movie, but while all the other kids in the friend group are all yelling at each other, I was like, don't worry, Data's there, he'll be chill, and yeah, he'll yell, but it's like, what he says makes sense half the time. He is definitely the highlight of this movie for me in regards to the cast.
Hey, the guy! The guy! They're not here!
Obviously, he won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Definitely deserved, loved him in that. He was in Temple of Doom, which I believe released the year before The Goonies, so I guess he has that survival instinct, going in caves and going on adventures and stuff. But yeah, Data was definitely a highlight of this movie for me. And also, new recruits into the Goonies, we have Steph and Andy, who are older, around Josh Brolin's character's age, and, you know, there's some stuff with them. Didn't really care too much about their involvement. Like, Andy and Brandon are, like, crushing on each other, and there's a bit where Andy is like, I'm closing my eyes, come give me a kiss, Josh Brolin, and then Mikey kisses her. I don't know. Maybe it's just silly 80s movie fun, but, you know, whatever. Another one of my favorite parts about the movie is, like, the opening scene where the opening credits are rolling, and we have this crime family, the Fratelli, I believe they're called, crime family. One of them is escaping from jail, and they're on the move, and a bunch of cop cars are behind them, and we get introduced to some of the Goonies, like, while the police chase is happening. That was a really fun, like, opening sequence to the movie. And speaking of the Fratelli crime family, they're an interesting part of this movie. I wasn't too sure what I was expecting going into the Goonies. I didn't realize we'd have this criminal family in it, but they were cool. One of the Fratelli brothers, Francis, he's played by Joe Pantoliano, and he is Captain Howard in the Bad Boys series, the Bad Boys franchise, one of my favorite characters in that franchise, so it was so cool to see him in this movie. He sounded so familiar and kind of had a familiar look, so when I looked at the cast, I was like, oh my god, it's Captain Howard, so that made me very happy seeing him in there. Love me some Captain Howard. Love all the Bad Boys movies, but we're not here to talk about Bad Boys, we're here to talk about the Goonies. I really don't have too much to say overall about the Goonies. In these first time watching kind of videos, I don't really do a full like recap that I do in my typical movie reviews. The only one I've done so far is Uncut Gems, and I think I had a bit more to say about that movie, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, just like this, but both movies are still good. It's just a fun little adventure. They go down a giant water slide towards the end. That looked insanely fun. There's a giant pirate ship. There's just so many fun elements to this movie, and this movie just screams fun. But going back to what I said in the very beginning, I think I would have enjoyed this more if I watched this at a younger age, maybe like pre-teens or like around 10 or something like that. But early 20s me is just hearing a bunch of kids scream, and I'm like, oh god. But one big portion of the Goonies that caught me by surprise was Sloth. I have seen lots of people talk about Sloth. I thought he was going to play a bigger portion in the movie. I always thought that he was the Goonies' like little friend that they kept around. But no, he's this big-ass dude, part of the Fratelli family, and they keep him chained up, and he's just like this deformed guy. And towards the end of the movie, there's a very funny line that Mama Fratelli says, where it's like, I only dropped you once. Oh, maybe twice.
I only dropped you once. Well, maybe twice.
That was probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. The funniest line dropped in there for sure. But yeah, I thought Sloth was gonna be in it more. He's there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, closer towards the end. You know, the hey you guys thing that I hear, like, quoted a bunch.
You wiggles.
Hey, you guys!
So that was a surprise for me. I thought he was going to be like a main character. Now that I'm sitting here recording my thoughts about this movie, it kind of makes me rethink how I actually feel. Because right after I got done watching, I was like, ooh, I don't think I like this as much as other people. But now hearing myself explain, you know, my favorite parts and what I didn't really care for, there's not much I didn't really care for. I think I actually liked a majority of the movie. I think The Goonies is just going to end up being one of those movies where in a couple of years I'll rewatch it and be like, what the hell was I thinking, not really caring too much about it? I absolutely love this. But for now, I'm in the middle, closer to like giving it a lot of praise. It's a fun time. If you yourself haven't seen The Goonies yet, it's on Tubi. I think it's leaving the day this comes out, so sorry. But hey, it'll be on somewhere, I'm sure. Thank you for watching the video. I don't know if this is going to be a shorter video than usual. I didn't really have much to say other than, like, I enjoyed it, aside from the fact that if you've ever been to a kid's birthday party, that's what the majority of this movie sounds like. But, you know, once you get over that hurdle, you're going to have a great time. I hope you enjoyed this little review of The Goonies, and my next video will be me ranking everything I watched during the month of August, because it's a new month, so we gotta recap and see what we liked and see what we absolutely did not. So I will see you then. Goodbye.